That image says it all.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many images that say it all right now. So.
That's true. That's a good one.
All right. So we can go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be just a short sharing from the two of us. I'm Dr. Laura Stuvé, and I'm joined here by Dr. Janet Galipo. And we're excited to just share some information that we feel is essential to everyone right now. We're all living through a crazy time, and knowing a little bit about how this stress impacts us helps us make better choices. Anything you want to say before I dive in, Janet?
Well, Laura's going to dive in, but we feel that these little mini talks are very relevant to everything that is going on now with our health and also with the rest of our lives. So please sit back and enjoy.
So we spoke last week about the long-term impacts of the virus on people that have had COVID-19. And today we're going to talk about how the stress and the unique aspects of a pandemic and all the fallout from the pandemic impact our health. So the aspect of stress that I'm going to be highlighting here is disconnection. So we're all more isolated right now. That's the nature of a lockdown. So from the routines that we do out in the world, from connecting with family and friends, from going into offices and having events with people. And while we all know this, we might not have considered what this type of isolation and disconnection can do to our immune system. So that's the aspect of science I want to share today, because it gives us some insights of simple things we can do to make a difference here. So I'm going to share the research from Dr. Steve Cole right here from UCLA Medical Center, who studies the worst type of stress. And that is the stress of being socially isolated from other people. So this is a quote from him. "We typically think of stress as being a risk factor for disease, and it is, somewhat. But if you actually measure stress using our best available instruments, it can't hold a candle to social isolation. Social isolation is the best established, most robust social or psychological risk factor for disease out there. Nothing can compete." Okay, so this is potentially an alarming understanding to integrate right now, since what kind of stress are we all under? The stress of social isolation. So we're going to talk a little bit about how this was established and what it means. What is social isolation doing to us? Specifically, what is it doing to the immune system? So it turns out our immune system is very tied into our emotional experience. And when we feel less connected to others, maybe even alienated, alone, like we're cut off from our support network, at a basic level, almost like a primal animal level, we feel that we are less safe. And whenever we feel we're not quite as safe, whether we feel like we're in imminent danger or not, our immune system responds. And it responds by amping up inflammation. Okay, so what does this mean? When our immune cells, they actually spit out more inflammatory communicators, inflammatory cytokines. But in terms of symptomology, it means any area that tends to go to aching and paining. Ache and pain and discomfort might be exaggerated, or maybe it's just harder for that elbow or knee or shoulder or pain in your lower back to recover. Allergies and food intolerances can be more prominent. And at a cellular level, this amplification of inflammation causes us to age more rapidly. Nobody's up for that. But we're also in the middle of the worst time, certainly in the area where I live in many parts of the US, of the COVID-19 pandemic. And when our immune system is very inflammatory, it actually doesn't work very well. It gets depleted, it gets run down. It's like if you were to drive your car with the gas pedal all the way to the floor, you would wear out the parts of the car more quickly. So when you drive your immune system in this fiery inflammatory mode, your immune response is depleted. It is weaker. So you have a harder time fighting off a simple cold virus or the flu virus or SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. So this is the time when we want a nice, strong, robust immune system. Nobody wants a weaker immune system when we need it to be in its top performance. So we're just going to pause for a minute and look at the research that has brought this out. And it's several lines of research, and I'm just going to weave together two simple strands here. First, the recent research on going to the evolutionary roots of what happens in a stress response, the fight or flight response, and what happens in an inflammation response have shown us that these two responses are not two, they are one. Okay, they are the same response system in the body. So if you turn on fight or flight, you turn on inflammation. And if you turn on inflammation, you turn on fight or flight. And really, we don't want to operate our bodies in these two emergency modes 24/7. It's just not a recipe for health. And Dr. Cole has done a set of what he calls loneliness studies. And this is a gist of his findings here in another quote from him. The kind of genes that get dialed up or down in response to social isolation are surprisingly consistent, from monkeys to people, and from 5-year-old kids to adults, and from teenagers to 60-year-olds. Okay, so what was analyzed in the loneliness studies? A whole set of different people. This is just a small number of groups that were studied over in pretty large scale research studies over about a 10-year period, which is that there are in the control panels of your genes, there are many genes that control inflammation, hundreds, about 500 or so. And in these genes, little switches turn inflammation up and calm down the anti-inflammation response in the body, such that your immune system gets more fiery. More inflammatory chemicals are produced. Again, whether you're looking at poor inner city children, people dying of cancer, caregivers of people whose spouse is dying of cancer, healthy people over 50, the exact same genes that control inflammation amp up when we are isolated. So this is part of the story, but over the past couple years, Dr. Cole has gone on to look at the flip side of the equation, which is when we feel more connected and when we feel optimistic, hopeful, then the inflammation responds the inflammation genes in our immune cells turn off. So this whole phenomenon is reversed. It might be hard to get to a point of optimism in the moment. Maybe you can do that. Maybe there's a sense of hope. But connection is something that we can all strive for. We can use the amazing tools of technology as we are right now. We're all connecting from all over on Zoom, or maybe you're listening to this recording later, but we can connect in these virtual formats. So I want to leave you today with just 2 tips that can support you for the stress and isolation of these times. So remember that any way you can stay connected, by talking to friends and family on the phone, on Zoom, meeting, for a walk with a friend, and staying your requisite social distance apart, every little thing is trickling down and shifting your immune cells. Your immune cells know when you feel connected. And so little things here make a big difference in terms of your health in the moment, your symptoms now, and the kind of burden of this period of social isolation, which will have an end, on your health going forward. So Janet and I really want to also invite everyone here to join us this Friday. We are going to do a group session, and the focus is going to be repairing all the tolls on our mind and body from this unique time. And certainly one of the things that I'm going to be working on is the toll of the social isolation of 2020 now carrying into 2021 on our immune cells, our inflammatory response, and accelerated aging. So we'll give you more details about this in a minute. I'm going to turn it over to Janet now, who's going to share something that I'm always fascinated about, which is how the different spiritual aspects of our bodies respond in times of stress.
Okay, so hello everyone. I think probably most of you out there who are tuned in today know me, but if not, I'm Janet Galipo. I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine and someone who is very committed to mind-body health care for 30 years. So welcome today. And so when we think about our consciousness or our soul or our spirits, in Chinese medicine, we have a very particular way of talking about this and of thinking about this, of referencing this. And we talk about the fact that we don't have one soul or one spiritual aspect. We actually have 5 souls. So all of our main organ systems, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, and the kidneys, each has a soul or a spirit, or if you don't like those words, we can say each of them have a consciousness, each of them have a mind. And so with anything that's happening in our lives, we have these 5 minds, 5 consciousness aspects of these organ systems interacting. So we're going to talk a little bit today about 2 of them. Well, probably a lot of us have heard of the Shen of the heart. And so, of course, we all know that our heart houses our deepest emotions, our deepest sense of self, our deepest connections to others. And when we really know something or when we really feel something, we point to our hearts. We say, I know this, I feel this, right? So it's here. So in Chinese medicine, we call the heart the master soul. It's of all of the 5 souls or spiritual aspects or 5 consciousness aspects, the heart's in charge. It's the master soul. And that means that it is coordinating all of the activity of the physical body, the mental body, meaning our thoughts, our emotional body, of which, we're very much aware of on a daily basis, and also our the spiritual side of ourselves. So it is the master coordinator for all aspects of the body. And it's kind of reading, what's going on in the outside world, what's happening out there. Do we feel safe? Do we feel loved? Do we feel cared for? Is life good? And then based on this information, it is relaying countless messages all throughout the body and keeping kind of everything communicating and everything moving. So we say that being able to maintain ourselves in a state of equilibrium helps the body to have a calm Shen, and vice versa. Being in touch with our heart energy, our Shen, is helpful for us to be able to maintain a internal calm balance within the body. So the Shen leads to calm, and calm leads to a happy Shen. So the Shen houses the mind, right? So a lot of times in some of the other more Western systems, we think that mind is here. But no, in Chinese medicine, mind is here. Mind is housed within the Shen. And that means that all aspects of, thinking, intelligence, emotions, and memory have a strong presence within the heart. And then the heart, of course, links to the brain. So, Laura and I were talking earlier today as we were putting together this little Facebook Live event for you. And we were talking about the fact that currently the heart, the Shen of the heart, is kind of in a crisis. So usually if we're in a crisis with our heart, it's a personal crisis. Something's happening in our lives, someone died, or we're going through a divorce, or there's a problem with our child, or we lost our job, or, there's some kind of personal crisis that is really generating a disturbance, emotional disturbance within us, which is picked up by the Shen of the heart. And so usually we're thinking about our own little, personal world and personal issues. However, right now, I think that the current state of affairs all over the world, with everything in so much turmoil with the pandemic and, the social political situation, is basically created a kind of collective crisis in the heart. It's kind of like, all of our hearts are heavy, are sad, are linked into, everything that's going on around us. So we have what I call a global Shen crisis. And, for those of you who have, kind of Eastern perspective on things, we can say it's our collective karma, right? It's not an individual karmic situation. It's more of a collective karmic situation. And so what happens with this kind of collective crisis of the heart? Well, we have a condition that we call in Chinese medicine Shen disturbance. Okay, Shen, our consciousness, our soul, our spirit, all of the awareness of our heart is disturbed. So what does this mean? So we listed here some of the symptoms that people can be experiencing. And if you look at the first two, we have insomnia and we have dream disturbed sleep. And so, one of the things that, I've noticed, and I think, lots of, clients and patients and friends and colleagues have noticed, is that even if we were good sleepers, before 2020, the crazy year of 2020, we're not good sleepers anymore. We're not resting well. Some nights are okay, some nights are not okay, and there's lots of strange and crazy dreams. So that is an indication that Shen is disturbed. Also, of course, anxiety. So lots of people are feeling anxiety, whether it's, anxiety related to a particular set of circumstances, like how am I going to pay my mortgage this month? Or, well, I'm sitting in my house by myself and I'm really lonely. What should I do with myself? Or whether, it's just more, free floating kind of anxiety coming from the sort of collective crisis. Lots of people are feeling anxious and a lot of uncertainty about the future. Also, inability to focus or concentrate. So, like you sit down to do something and it's like you just don't have the oomph. You just don't have the focus and the energy to really complete the task. So there is, as it says here, a lack of inspiration, almost like a deadness. I don't want to call it depression. It's not really a depression, but it's almost like a deadness, like, oh, why even bother? Oh, is this really important right now? So it's a lack of inspiration that we usually have to involve ourselves in our lives and complete tasks. Also, no ability to discern what's right and sort of what our next step should be. Like we really are having a hard time understanding like what we're supposed to be doing. So yeah, the way that we wrote about it here is our fire element is offline. So our fire element is the element that really gives us a lot of young energy and really helps with the kind of emotional aspect of our lives, the inspiration, the passion. And a lot of that is really lacking now. And so we're kind of like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't really, I don't really have the energy or the wherewithal to do much. So, all of these different common symptoms and indications taken together are what I call related to this kind of collective crisis of the heart. Okay, so we talked about the Shen of the heart. We started off by saying that all of the 5 main organ systems have their own kind of consciousness or a spiritual soul aspect. And so now I want to talk about the other very important soul aspect right now, which is the Hun of the liver. The Hun of the liver is often referred to as our karmic soul. What does that mean? Well, it means that whatever we came in here to do, whatever we feel like our life purpose is, that sense of purpose is really ruled by the Hun karmic soul of the liver. It's kind of keeping track of, okay, well, this is, these are your abilities, these are your strengths, these are your goals, this is what you set out to do. And the Hun of the liver wants to see that manifest. So a healthy Hun allows us to be clear about our purpose in life, to find our path, our true path, and then to move forward in a direction so that we can achieve what we set out to do. We always say that the Hun has a strong connection to the eyes. The liver has a strong connection to the eyes. And during the day, the Hun operating through the eyes helps us to see clearly our life's purpose. So that's just kind of a metaphorical way of talking about the fact that when you look at someone's eyes, you get this sense of their vitality, how present they are, what their awareness is. And when we see this in the eyes, it's really the Hun that we're tuning into. And then, of course, at night we go to sleep. And so then the Hun then descends back down into the liver, where it's also, part of the whole dream life. And, when we have lots of sort of confused dreams with lots of crazy, places and people and lots of activity and things like that, that's definitely an indication that not only the Shen, but also the Hun is disturbed. Because if the Hun is calm and happy and we're in kind of clear, kind of clear direction with our purpose, then our dreams are not so distorted. They're not so disturbed. And then the Hun can complete its job of, giving us dreams that have clear messages and also sorting out the priorities of the next day. So the Hun and the Shen are what we call our top 2 tiers of consciousness. There are 3 other tiers. Some of you are familiar with Chinese medicine know about this. The lower tiers include the Zhi of the kidneys, and then the Po of the lungs, and then the Yi of the spleen. So then that completes kind of our 5 consciousness or soul aspects. But today, I wanted to point out this relationship between the Hun and the Shen, which are sort of the top 2 and definitely affected by everything that's gone on over the last year or so. So getting a little bit more into, okay, what do the specific disturbances of the Hun look like? Then we're getting a little bit more into Chinese medical theory. And so the disturbance of a hun where there's a lot of stagnation that's creating an excess condition in our body, we're going to see things like exuberant anger, people having like a lot of angry outbursts because they just feel like, everything in their life is so out of control and they don't really even know what's going on next. And the chi is not really circulating well. The hun is not able to help the chi circulate within the meridians well. And so there are these, areas of chi stagnation and lots of eruptive anger there. So that's an excess condition when the hun is kind of like an explosive state. Deficiency is the exact opposite. So it's almost like, it's very like timid and weak and, oh, I don't know. And, I don't know what to do about that. And I don't know. Oh, no, I can't. I'm overwhelmed. I can't deal with this right now. So both of these indicate disturbances of the hun. And then, of course, we have symptoms. We mentioned insomnia as a disturbance of the shen and dream disturbed sleep also. And both of those also relate to the hun, as well as anxiety. Because the liver is involved in processing, all of our different biochemistry in the body, digestive disturbance can also occur, so a lot of people are noticing that, they can't eat foods that they used to, or that, the digestion has been very, very disturbed during this time period. There could be a lot of possible reasons for this. I mean, of course, routines and schedules have been interrupted. And so, that also results in, different organ systems being out of balance. But definitely, the hun of the liver plays a role here. A lot of erratic emotions, right? So the emotions are just not consistent. So, you feel fine for, 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden you feel very frustrated, and then all of a sudden you feel like depressed and low. And then you get impatient, so this incredible emotional fluctuation. And then, this last thing I put down is, can't do anything, wandering around aimlessly, like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? So that is really symptomatic of a hun that has lost direction. I'm just like, I start a project, I can't finish. I feel like I'm running into a brick wall all the time. And so, all of these are indications that there is a disturbance in the hun of the liver. And as I started off by saying, we talked about these two soul aspects. Usually, these are things that are happening to us as individuals in our lives. We're going through a hard time and the rest of the world is basically okay. But now there is a collective situation. The rest of the world is not okay. So it's a sort of collective, malaise, or, a collective, experience, that we're all having that has really affected both the shen and the hun. Okay. Well, you can see here, Laura and I are both going to talk here, but you can see here that we have some solutions for you. So, we have some ideas, and, the whole time, when the pandemic started in March, we were launching a program that was kind of advanced, holistic studies program in energy medicine. And we had to revamp things in order to really try to keep up with what was going on in the country with the pandemic, with, everybody, going through their different mental, emotional, struggles, physical issues during this time period. And so we've created a lot of tools, including the tools here. And I'll let Laura talk about our Rejuvenation Summit that's coming up on Friday.
So Janet and I are really excited. We have an opportunity to share a platform with Dr. Deepak Chopra. He's certainly I think one of the key visionaries in holistic medicine. And to have him joining us at our summit is amazing. So I'm excited to hear about Dr. Chopra's 10 strategies for keeping your mind, body, and spirit in balance. And so if you want to hear that exciting information, please join us. That'll be the first hour. In the second hour, Janet and I are going to do a little bit of what we did today. Janet, with her background in classical Chinese medicine, shares information from that system that is relevant to our health now. And then I'm going to weave in the latest science of how stress takes a toll on us and what we can do about it. Because really, if we look at the lifestyle tips from these two different disciplines, they're very aligned. Modern science supports what ancient Chinese doctors have known for millennia. So for me, that's exciting. And then we really want you to experience this, because we can talk about it all we want, but we all need to have our immune systems, our Shen, our Hun, our nervous system shifted into a state that one, we've recovered from last year, and we're ready to address what's in front of us this year with more resilience and more optimism. So we're excited to be presenting this event, and you can sign up on our website here. And then, as Janet said, we've developed a training. It's a 16-hour e-course, and we're going to do 6 hours of live content at the end of the month. If you want to understand your immune system, with integrating the wisdom of classical Chinese medicine and the latest science, and learn how to tune your immune system for anything, to address autoimmune disease, cancer, COVID-19, this course is designed for you. And it's also got lots of tips about how to completely recover from the pandemic, whether you had COVID-19 or not. It's open to all practitioners, but we will do the demonstrations on the Body Intuitive platform. Right. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We love doing these and connecting with all of you. And we will hopefully see you on Friday or very soon.
Yeah, so yes, thank you so much for joining us. There's one question, and definitely if you have questions afterwards, you can just email us at training@bodyintuitive.org. You can sign up for the Friday session at our website. Go to bodyintuitive.org, the register page, sign up for the Rejuvenation Summit. Okay. And if you want to sign up for the Pandemic Recovery e-course and live course, the live course is the 20th and the 27th. We haven't decided if it will be available, obviously you can sign up later, but you'll miss the live content. So, but if you need a payment plan to join us, if you have any questions about that pandemic recovery course, just email us. Right. So thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks everybody. See you soon.
Bye.